Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Omega Insight. Tonight, we kick off the series of What's in Your Toolbox. And what I decided to do was throughout the years, I've collected a number of poems and things that I think would be important for us to read, whether it was passed on to me from George or in facilitator training, or some of the readings that I have done. I've collected them and put them together what I've called a day book. Most people who know me know that this is what I do. My clients, that's one of the things we do. We build a day book. In other words, when I have some time or in the morning when I want to reflect or at night before I go to sleep, I'll flip through this book and read something that's meaningful to me. And so the Toolbox series, I decided to go through four poems that we had to commit to memory in facilitator training that I think are a good code to live by. Since we're starting out a new year, 2022, I thought this would be a nice way to start out the year and check out to see what is in our toolbox, what can we add to our toolbox, again, for effective ways of living. The first one that I'm going to choose is the poem If by Rudyard Kipling. And I wanted to just recite this poem and just explain a little bit about what each line means. And this is a fairly long poem, and I used to know it by heart, and truth be told, I don't anymore. So I will be reading to it. I do know the first sentence of the poem, If, which, a side note, this was written to his son as his way of saying, hey, this is the best way to prepare for the world. So the first line is, if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. A lot of this actually has to do with emotional um, intelligence, not reacting, not taking things personal. That's really what it comes down to. So if everyone's losing their heads, there's chaos everywhere, and they all start blaming you. So keep your head. Don't take it personal, just keep your head. The second line is, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting as well. In other words, trust your inner voice. Yeah, I know what I'm doing. And just be aware there might be room for improvement, or you could be wrong, or there might be a better way to do something. But for the most part, stick with your voice and be open to opportunities. The third line is, if you can wait and not be tired of waiting. Of course, this deals with patience. The next one, or being lied about, don't deal in lies. Now, this is very important. We have a tendency to want to defend ourselves. That's not true. And if we hear that somebody said something about us, then we want to go out and defend. And the idea is, why are you wasting your energy? I mean, many years ago, I learned this from George. There's no need to ever defend yourself. Your friends don't need it, and your enemies won't believe it. So don't even spend your time or energy wasting on it. So if somebody is lying about you, the best way to deal with that is to stay true to your own convictions and not give any energy and not defend yourself at all. Or being hated and not give way to hate, same thing. When we are hated, somebody has negative energy towards us, or they're talking bad about us, or they're judging us, not give any energy to it. Everyone has a right to their opinion. You want to hate me? Go ahead and hate me. If you don't like me, that's okay. It's not so much that you care about what other, or like you don't care what anybody thinks about you, but it's more about it doesn't change who you are. Now, there's a difference between this and feedback. When you're receiving feedback, obviously you're asking for something to help you assist. I'm talking about people, the hate, the comments, which is one of the reasons why I do not read comments. And I tell people do not read comments because comments are just a way for people to flex their internet muscles and they can just mean and nasty. And I feel bad for that. So, anyway, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise. In other words, don't be arrogant. Don't put people down. I'm above that. I don't read comments. I'm above that. That's not what I'm saying. If you have a weak constitution and you can't handle negative comments, don't read comments. That it's really just that simple. So you don't want to be arrogant and you don't want to stick it in their face. Well, I never get upset about that. No, that's not what I'm talking about here. The next one is, if you can dream, and yet don't make dreams your master. So have the dreams, but don't live in fairy tale land. When I win the Powerball, I'm going to do this, this, and this, but I don't get a job. That's not what you should do. It's okay to get a job and have dreams. Dreams are goals, they inspire us, but we shouldn't live out there. It's just like planning for the future. You prepare for the future, but you don't live out there. You have to come back here and live. If you can think and not make thoughts your aim. Now, this is a little tricky. The idea is to have an open mind, think globally. We've talked about this before, thinking about the big picture, but also don't get stuck in your thoughts. There's emotions involved, and our heart is involved, and interactions are involved. So it's not, we have to not necessarily just live by our thinking. We have to include all the other levels of our being, our physical, our emotional, as well as the mental and our spiritual aspects. If you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters just the same. Think about this. When we have triumph, when we have a victory, we get so excited and we're happy. And when we have a disaster, oh, we feel terrible and miserable. So his idea is, doesn't matter if it's triumph or disaster, don't let them rob you of your inner peace. If there's something terrible happening, recognize that it's happening, but don't let it destroy you. Worry doesn't do anything except rob your peace for the day. So, not to put any energy or effort into that. If you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools. Another really important thing. Sometimes we speak and people will take our words and use it against us or use it to their advantage, saying, well, Anne Marie said, and they try to gather other individuals, whether it's hype or sale or just the need for importance. So remember, if you can hear somebody twisting your words, don't spend the energy to go in there and change it. So if you can bear to hear the truth, so I can hear it and I don't react. That's the idea. If I can bear to hear my truth spoken and twisted by knaves to set a trap for fools. So I can bear it and I go, oh, breathe and not react to it. Again, don't put the energy out there. Or watch watch the things you gave your life to broken. Another hard thing to do. We work hard, we put our effort or energy. Perhaps you're working on a project and you work so hard to get this project going, and all of a sudden someone comes along and either dismisses it, deletes it, or isn't in value anymore. And it's broken, let's say. I'm trying to use today's ideology or terminology. Don't let that destroy me. And it's hard, especially when you put so much effort and energy into something and then all of a sudden it's hard. We just came through the holidays. I know how many times we make holiday meals and maybe something doesn't come out the way we wanted it to, and then we feel bad because we're responsible for the meal. Or we found the perfect gift and we find out the person doesn't like it. Those are things we take it personal. So that's the concept, not to take this personal. So it actually is a two-part here. Or watch the things you gave your life to broken and stoop and build them up with worn out tools. So instead of going, oh, I have to do it again, I just go, okay, let's do that again and reset and start over. And by worn out tools, it means you've done this before. And you may be tired, you may be exhausted, you might have your energy drawn, but you're going to still do it. You're going to work on it without any upset. That's the important thing, is not to have any upset. The next one is, if you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on a turn of pitch and toss and lose and start again at your beginnings and never breathe a word about the loss. That's actually 3 lines, but I put it all together. So if you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on a turn of pitch and toss, in other words, take a risk and lose and start again at your beginning, start all over again, and never breathe a word about your loss. This is important too, especially today with social media. Everybody has to tell everybody everything. And I remember one of the practices that we had, one of the exercises we had in facilitator training was to go for a week and never speak about something that just happened to us. And I was so excited. I'm going to do this. This is great. I can be reticent. I could be reticent. And I left the meeting. I went to go get gas. And as I went to get gas, there was this kid pushing his car up to the gas pump. And he said, I'm so sorry. Do you have $1? I totally just ran out of gas and I don't have my wallet on me. I said, no worries. I opened up the gas cap and I filled his gas with my card. I'm like, I got it. I filled his tank. He drove away so happy and excited. I got in the car immediately. I wanted to call my best friend to say, oh my gosh, you never believe I got. I call. And as I'm calling, I go, oh, no, I'm not supposed to tell anybody. I hung up. And then I wanted to call George to tell him that I realized I shouldn't tell somebody about something that just happened to me. So when I called George and I started to speak, I went, oh, it's the same thing. We were so invested in having other people hear what are wonderful things that happen to us or the tragedies that happen to us. We want that attention. So that's the idea, is no matter what happens, not breathe a word about it. And this one, he's talking about your loss. Don't let anybody know your loss. Nobody know you're suffering. George always used to tell people, never tell anybody when you're sick. You don't want to get that sympathy. Push through it. If you're sick, just make excuses. Excuse yourself. I mean, like I need to take a break. For this last month, I had um, and I had something that prevented me from seeing, so I couldn't get on the computer and do these videos. So now that that's over, but not to tell anybody. That's the whole idea. Then the next one, I love this line. This is probably my favorite line of this. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing left within you except the will which says to them, hold on. So essentially, that means if you could put your heart, your energy, your sinew, which is your substance, if you could put all of that into what you're doing, even when you're flat out exhausted, just flat out, I can't, like you've reached your edge. But if you could push yourself a little bit more there, not to injury, but just take that extra drip, extra step and push yourself and hold on when there's nothing left within you except the will which says, hold on. Now, this relates to willpower. The idea of developing willpower really means don't give in to comfort. One of the willpower exercises that we teach is when you're tired and you sit down at the end of the day and you just want to turn on the TV and just zone out. Before you do that, get up and go for a walk. Force yourself to do something that you weren't going to do. A walk is healthy. It doesn't have to be a long walk, 10 minutes, walk around the block, but give your willpower precedence over your desires. That's the idea. And again, that is one of my favorite lines out of this poem. I'll say it again. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve their turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing left within you except the will which says, hold on. The next line is, if you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings, nor lose the common touch. And both of those relate to the idea that everybody should be treated equally. And that's one of the things I do love about in Omega. Doesn't matter if you're the CEO or the janitor, we treat everybody equally. And I said janitor, the janitor. Sanitation, doesn't matter what your position is. Everybody is a human being and everybody is treated equally. There is no hierarchy of individuals. Not to discount your achievements, but when we're working on the inner path and we're working with one another, that shouldn't matter. A human being is a human being. So we treat each other with respect and love and compassion. That's the idea. So keeping my virtue and keeping my integrity, in other words, keep my virtue when I'm walking with crowds and when I'm with the elite, not to be overwhelmed by them, which I'm very grateful for. I've had many opportunities to be around famous individuals in my massage life. When I was a massage therapist, I worked with a lot of individuals that were famous sports figures. Never said a word to anybody what their names were. I still won't tell anybody because it doesn't matter. They're just people. I never saw the title. I never saw the image. I always saw the person who needed a massage and needed help. And I'm grateful I had that experience because I really feel that every person should be treated equally. Your title, what you do for a living, doesn't make you any better or less than another individual. Then if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, so enemies or friends, they can't hurt you. In other words, don't take things personal. Never let another person rob your inner peace. If all men count with you, but none too much, not have favoritism. If you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distant run. I love this line too. That's probably my second line. If you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distant run. So, in other words, make the most out of what you have. You got a minute? Fill that minute with something. You got an hour to do, fill that hour. Now, I'm not saying work, 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 work. I mean, if you need a break and you need time to distract, to unplug, do that. Take care of yourself. But don't just idly buy. That's sloth, not to be sloth. That's one of the seven deadly sins. To overcome slothfulness, to be in charge of what you're doing, and intention. Use your intent to live your life. And finally, he says, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. Again, he wrote this for his son to learn how to live life. I think the poem If is a very good code of conduct to live by. It's a good guideline. And even in today's world, even though this was written many years ago, I think it's still appropriate today. So again, it's called the poem If, and it's by Rudyard Kipling. I would suggest that you go ahead and find that. I'm sure you can find that somewhere on a Google search. You'll be able to read it. But that is one of the tools that's in my toolbox. So, John, thank you for joining me this week for that. And I look forward to discussing another tool next Monday. Have a wonderful evening. Bye now.